In and out of the Beltway. From large cities to small towns to the rural heartland. From sea to shining sea. This is Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio. Inside the News.
Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the News. Guy Wehman along with Ben Brunson and Frank Vernuccio. Let's say hi to the guys this week. Ben, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. I'm in the mountains of North Carolina and enjoying the summer.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I heard they have some militant groups up there.
Not around me. I'm near Asheville. It's about as left-wing as you can get.
Oh, my goodness. All right. And Frank Vernuccio, how you doing?
Greetings from the land of the brave enough to ride the subways and home of the free, cause Bragg has let him out of jail.
Yeah, we got to get you to the northern part up there by Lake Champlain. That's pretty up there.
And cold in the winter. Really cold in the winter.
Yeah, but you're a brave soul because you live that close to New York.
Indeed.
I would think that the cold would be safer than New York City. All right, let's get right to it. There's so much going on in this world, and Frank and I were talking a little bit off air about how dangerous it all is. And Frank, let's just maybe start with that before we get to POTUS here, because you were just saying that these next 7 or so months could be the most dangerous in the history of the United States. Go.
Indeed. If you were an adversary of the United States and you're looking at a president who's only apparently aware from 10 to 4, Monday through Friday, then it's very easy to realize that this would be a great time to do something really nasty, whether it's against Taiwan, the Philippines, or against the United States itself. There is certainly other people who are running the country. We know that Joe Biden is not. But on the other hand, if there is something that requires a very in-depth or very quick response, you really can't do that by committee. That's why the founding fathers wanted a chief executive who could respond quickly enough. So we are basically open for business in terms of being assaulted by our adversaries or our allies being assaulted by our adversaries. This is probably the most dangerous collection of months in the history of the United States.
All right, we're going to get Ben to weigh in on this, but it's strange that you should mention other people running things, because there's an operative of the Biden campaign, Maureen Dowd. She wrote an article, okay, and she was referring to the interview with George Stephanopoulos, and Biden said the word goodest, and so she put that in her article, goodest. Well, guess what? The Biden campaign in the White House, they said, change it. We want you to change it to good as, not goodest. And then, so here she's actually, and she's not exactly misconservative, but she was just reporting what was there. Ben, go.
Well, that's an interesting point, because in that scenario, I guess you have some legitimacy in asking the quote to be, let's say, corrected. We have, on the other hand, official transcripts of meetings that take place that are supposed to be an accurate record of what is said in meetings. And we know for a fact that those official transcripts get edited all the time, even though that is not supposed to be how it's working. And they're being edited over the course of this administration in order to correct the mispronunciation and the made up words and the rambling incoherences of a president. And so, that's just one public example with Maureen Dowd, but it's been going on for a while. And again, this falls into the category of everyone knows what's going on. This was being discussed during the campaign 4 years ago, the mental condition and frailty of Joe Biden. He locked himself in his basement, blaming COVID. And I guess that strategy worked. At least it works when you get all sorts of 3 a.m. ballot stuffings done in key swing states. We'll see if it works again, but I don't think it's going to work this time.
Okay, Ben, I still want you to weigh in on what Frank and I were talking about, that these next 6 to 7 months could be the most dangerous in our history.
Well, we're living through the reality of that. It's been the last 3.5 years. When you have a weak, feckless administration, when you have, just like Barack Obama started off his administration by going around on on bended knee on the apology tour everywhere around the world, telling everyone in the world that the U.S. is an evil country, and now we're here to pay amends for that with the Obama administration. That set a tone which really hurt us globally. In this case, with Anthony Blinken, who's a complete idiot, and the rest of this administration. Our enemies have taken full advantage, and we see war in Europe on a massive scale. The level of combat and the intensity of combat in Ukraine is really quite frightening and bloody, and there's a huge price being paid by everybody involved. But we have seen the collapse of the peace initiatives that were blooming under Donald Trump and have been replaced by a global war being right on the edge of global war, all based in the Middle East. Again, we highlight this on the show every week. The level of intensity and combat between Hezbollah and Israel is quite severe already. It just gets ignored in the press in the United States. So we're really on the verge of something ugly there. And it's all a result of weakness out of Washington, D.C.
All right, Frank, now let's get back to what's going on with, not with Maureen Dowd and all, but I mentioned the cover-up is worse than the crime, which is what happened with Richard Nixon and, with the Watergate scandal. And is this scandal, or is it a scandal of what's going on with Joe Biden? Who knew it? When did they know it? Because obviously they knew this not only 1 year, 2 years, they could have known it before the 2020 election, Frank.
Yeah, congratulations, everyone. You're living in the midst of a coup. We elected a president in 2020, Joe Biden. I didn't vote for him, but he was elected. And other people took control. I think even in 2020, it was obvious that Joe Biden was not capable of being president. And so people behind the scenes in the Democratic Party and in Biden's inner circle decided to leave him as the figurehead, but really they're running the country. There has been a coup in the United States that started in 2020. That fact is something I think historians will write about and marvel about for decades to come. But there is another reason in 2024 why the Democratic Party continues to prop up, many continue to prop up Joe Biden, and has to do with something that some bright folks at the Wall Street Journal found. 11 Code of Federal Regulations, Section 103.4. All those tens of millions, I believe it's $100 million, that went into the Biden-Harris campaign can't be easily transferred to another candidate. The only candidate who can pick up on those dollars is Kamala Harris. But there's even a catch to that. The money can be transferred from the Biden-Harris campaign to a new Harris and somebody else campaign if Joe Biden is out after he officially receives the nomination. So for financial reasons, it seems probable that Joe Biden will go straight to the convention, get his nomination, and then the leaders of the Democratic Party will move to kick him out at that point. So it's all about the money. Isn't it so often with the Democratic Party, and particularly with the Biden wing of it, that it's always all about the money?
It's amazing because they have got to figure out the way and wiggle their way to get to that point of getting him the nomination and then making sure that he's still alive and can still function and, transfer that. But you're right, Frank, it is all about the money. Ben Brunson, go.
Yeah, I don't expect Joe Biden to, assuming he's still alive and not in a coma, I do not expect him to give up power. All right, I think the pathway is pretty well set. The one person who can sway him one way or the other clearly is his wife, Jill Biden. And it's equally clear to me that she enjoys being the closet president of the United States. And I think she's looking forward to extending that run. So that's the way it is. And when you hear openly stated in the press that Hunter Biden, a crack addict, sex-addled crack addict, is now a major advisor. It tells you that the family is all in with dad being reelected. There is no plan B as far as the family is concerned. That is how they make money. That is how they hold power, and they're not going to give it up. I just think that's the reality of what we're going to face. So I think we're going to see a ballot in November that will be Trump versus Biden at the top of the ticket. But all that said, if I'm wrong, it is equally clear that right now, based on things that Frank just went through and was, what's laid out in the law, that the only choice the Democrats have would be to make Kamala Harris the standard bearer of the ticket. And I'm not sure that's a choice the rest of the Democratic Party is very excited about.
The Clintons, and especially Hillary, with all of her money that came in the Clinton Foundation, they kind of wrote the playbook on this, that you can bring in all this money. We can live off this money because Chelsea, I mean, she got a job for who knows how much money, and that came out of that. And so the Bidens are saying, well, if she can do it, why can't we do it as well, Frank?
Yeah, I believe Chelsea got a job for $1 million annual salary the day she graduated from school. Not a bad deal. The Clintons really changed the face of politics in this country. You look at it going forward, and the concept of government service, and I put service in quotations, as a way of becoming rich, has really, I think, stood the Constitution on its head. We can talk about a whole host of issues, frankly, affecting both parties, where insider trading rules, for example, don't seem to apply to members of Congress. This is really warping politics in the United States. Government service was not supposed to be a way of getting rich. It was supposed to be a way of serving the country by folks who had accomplished other things in their lives. But you now have the phenomena in the United States of people who, in some cases, got elected to a minor government position when they were just about 18 years old, have stayed in that position, progressively gotten stronger and stronger positions, and have become quite wealthy because of it. It's a way of life for politicians, which explains why so many of our elected officials are divorced from understanding how business works, how the economy works. They've never had to meet a payroll. They've never had to worry about a paycheck, a company that could go bankrupt, simply because they've lived off the public dole from the earliest days of their career right up until the time they retire.
Okay, Benton, before we get out of this topic here, we got to get to the vulnerability of our U.S. forces.
Can you pitch this to Frank, please?
Oh, okay.
This is Frank's issue.
Oh, all right. Frank, you know what we're going to talk about here?
Yeah, I do.
He's been prepped for it for a while.
All right. All right. Now let's kind of turn it around a little bit here. And Frank, let's talk just a little bit to finish out this first segment of the vulnerability of our U.S. forces in the Pacific.
Yeah. Chairman John Molinar of the China Committee in Congress has issued a variety of reports and warnings saying that American forces in the Pacific are extremely vulnerable. One of the things that's concerning is that China has developed literally, I believe it's up to hundreds of thousands of missiles, which can be launched pretty quickly against U.S. bases in the Indo-Pacific region. It's not that we don't have some air defenses, we do, but they would be overwhelmed simply by the number of Chinese shells and missiles that would rain in on places like Okinawa and so forth. Chairman Molinar is saying that we don't have even adequate passive defenses, such as shelters where we could hide our fighters, our personnel, and so forth. So you're looking at something like a Pearl Harbor event in our Indo-Pacific bases. And this time, we're facing an adversary that is larger than us in numbers, has a wonderful industrial base, and can easily cause massive problems. We wouldn't be able to recover as quickly as we did during World War II after Pearl Harbor. We don't have the industrial base that we had back then. So we're looking at a situation of imminent peril. It's really at China's discretion whether they want to do this or not. And if they do it, they will be able to be far more effective than the Japanese were in the Second World War. Don't forget also, if we have to replenish our forces in the Pacific, Chinese private companies operate on both sides of the Panama Canal. So we wouldn't even be able to be as flexible as we were in the Second World War. We are facing a world of danger. And frankly, outside of a few isolated articles and this show, not many people are paying attention, thanks to Chairman Molinar and the Committee on China in Congress.
And it brings to mind the sale of U.S. Steel, and that's now going overseas. And what we talked about with Bethlehem Steel as well, because that built a lot of the warships back in the day, and that was a 150-year-old, corporation and all. We have just gotten started. And Ben is chomping at the bit because there are two countries in the European Union that are dead. Yeah, they're dead. Well, we're going to talk about their deadness when we get back, because could we be one of those nations as well on this side of the Atlantic? Well, we're going to find out as we come back. This is Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio Inside the News with Frank Vernuccio, Ben Brunson, myself, Guy Wehman. We're going to take our first time out. We'll be back.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio Inside the News.